Okay, so today we're going to take a deep dive into some pretty intense stuff.
Yeah.
We're talking about NATO
Uh-uh.
and some pretty wild things that Donald Trump has said about it recently.
Sounds familiar.
It does, right? This whole
Who pays?
who pays thing. Yeah,
And is it fair?
exactly.
What are we getting out of it?
Yeah, and is it worth it?
Right.
So he's even said that he might pull the U.S. out of NATO entirely if other countries don't cough up more cash.
Okay. So
Ugh.
to really get why that's such a big deal,
Yeah.
we have to kind of step back first
Okay.
and understand what NATO even is
Okay.
and why it was created in the first place.
NATO 101.
Exactly.
All right, lay it on me.
So it's the North Atlantic Treaty Organization,
Okay.
formed way back in 1949,
Post-World War II.
right when things were really tense between the Soviet Union and the West.
Okay.
Basically, it was like, hey, we're stronger together.
Like a big group project.
Right. If one of us gets attacked, we all jump in to help.
Gotcha. So it was like a united front.
Exactly. And that was a huge deterrent.
Okay.
Like-
Especially back then.
Especially back then when things were super tense.
All right. So super powerful group. But Trump's saying that some members aren't pulling their weight financially.
Yeah, he's not wrong. The U.S. contributes way more than anyone else.
Like what percentage are we talking?
Something like 70% of the whole budget.
Whoa. 70. That's a huge chunk of change.
It is, but there's more to the story than that.
Okay, I was going to say, that seems a little unbalanced.
Yeah.
So, what are some reasons why other countries might not be spending that 2% of their GDP on defense?
Well, for one thing, not every country feels equally threatened.
Sure.
Some might be more worried about other stuff like their economy or social programs.
That makes sense.
And also, the U.S. kind of took on that leadership role early on.
Especially during the Cold War.
Right, so it's been kind of expected.
Okay, so maybe it's not so simple to just say everyone needs to spend the same amount.
It's complicated.
But then what happens if the U.S. actually bails on NATO?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah, what are the ramifications?
Well, first off, it would definitely weaken the alliance.
Okay.
And that could embolden countries like Russia.
Because they'd see an opening.
Right, they might feel like they can get away with more.
So that's not good.
Not good at all.
And what about four détentries? The rest of the world.
It could create instability, especially in Europe,
Okay.
and even shift the global balance of power.
Oh, man, now that's scary.
Yeah, imagine a world where China steps in to fill the void.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
So back to that 2% thing. Where did that number even come from?
So that was actually decided at a NATO summit back in 2006.
Okay.
And it was meant to be more of a guideline.
Not a rule set in stone.
Right, but the world has changed a lot since then.
You're telling me, we've got all these new threats now.
Exactly, like cyber warfare, terrorism.
Things that weren't really on the radar back then.
Right, so using GDP as the only measure for defense spending might not make as much sense anymore.
Okay, that's actually a really good point. I hadn't thought about that. So let's play devil's advocate for a second.
Okay.
Could there be any validity to Trump's argument about the U.S. carrying too much of the load?
I mean, there's no denying that we've been paying a lot.
For a long time.
Yeah, and ideally everyone should share the responsibility.
Right.
But the U.S. also gets a lot out of being in NATO.
Like what?
It helps us project power,
Okay.
maintain stability in key regions, and prevent conflicts that could eventually drag us in anyway.
So it's not just about being nice guys.
Right. It's strategic, too.
So there are pros and cons to consider.
Definitely, it's a complex issue.
What would you say is the most important thing for people to keep in mind as they follow this whole NATO saga?
This isn't just about money. It's about fundamental questions.
Like what?
About NATO's role in the 21st century and how countries should share the burden of defense.
That's a good one.
So as you read more about this, think about how this might impact future international relations.
Yeah, that's a big one.
And what it says about the U.S.'s role in the world.
Okay.
Because things are changing fast.
They really are.
And we need to be prepared.
For whatever comes next.
Exactly.
All right. So much to think about. Thanks for breaking it all down.
You got it.
And to all our listeners out there, stay informed. And stay engaged.
Because this stuff matters.
It really does. Catch you next time on The Deep Dive.